Hey everyone, it's Jason, continuing on with my series of videos on the facilities on my layout. This is the third video, and this is the yard shop. Now originally I had planned to use the BLMA shop building, which I really liked. I thought it was cool. Problem was it wouldn't fit in this footprint. So what I ended up doing is I ended up buying the Rix product. They have a office facility. I think it's called like the three-way office facility or something. It can be built in a few different configurations. I ended up having to really cut it down to the size of the space that I was using. So it's not actually one of the configurations that they had that it's prescribed for, but it worked nonetheless. It sits here at the end of the yard, and I'll pan down and show you that. There's one of the facilities that we looked at before, and here's the yard itself. You can see the foreground is not that's not scenic yet. I lean on it so much that it's just been something I've waited until the end to really do up. It's serviced by a dirt road that comes in here actually off the edge of the facility. And this dirt road, man, it took me quite a few times to get that to look the way it looks right now. And I don't know if you could tell in the video or not, but you can actually see tire prints, and you can see that there's two different lanes, and it's looser gravel down the center. The signs are made from photos that I took at the local train yard, and then I printed them out on photo paper and used the spring wire as the pole. So these actually can be bent and flicked around and stuff, and they won't break, which is kind of nice. In fact, I had lost this one. I just found it the other day. It was sitting on the roof of one of my buildings. So this here, the wood crossing, I'm going to try to zoom in on it. I don't know if you'll really be able to see this from this angle. So from this angle, you get a little bit better view of what's going on here. So these are all individually laid boards. I had to shape each one of them and sand them down to get them to fit. I punched holes in them. You can kind of make out that there's holes along here. I punched those holes in to look like there was bolts. Stained it all with rubbing alcohol washes, and it came out really good. I was actually really pleasantly surprised. It's just some stripped balsa wood that I had laying around, and you know, it worked. I didn't expect it to. In fact, it worked so good that I had to do the same thing over on this side. That originally wasn't planned to be there, but I liked the way it looked. Let's see if I can get it to focus. I liked the way it looked, so I did the same thing there. So the building itself is pretty straightforward. One of the things that I did was, let me move these out of the way, is I used photographs of windows with mini blinds in them. See if we can get a focus on that. So that's a little better. You can see I used pictures of photographs of a window with some blinds in it. In fact, I think it was a picture I took out in front of my house, and then glued those into the back. Same thing for the door, only that's got a metal grate over the window. The signs were taken off some buildings at a local train yard, and then there's the fence that I glued together up in the front. I don't know if I'd really call it a fence. I guess it's more of a parking barrier. So here's a little bit better look at the front of the building. You can kind of see the metal grating here in the window. You can get a better sense of what's going on with the blinds there, the signs on the side of the door, and the Union Pacific Herald. So these signs, when I printed them out again on glossy photo paper. And I actually peeled the back layer of paper off to make them as thin as possible before I glued them on. I glued them on with just white glue. This piece right here is actually made out of rail that I laid on its side, and I can't remember if I CA'd it together or if I tried to solder it together. And then I painted it yellow with just a yellow painting pen, which worked out so what I wanted you to see in this shot is that the building was actually a little bit too big for the building site, and I built it after this hill was actually already in place. So I had to carve out the corner of this hill here in order to fit the building in. So I came up with this little retaining wall. It's made out of the same lumber that I used for the grade crossings. Kind of brick stacked it, and it makes kind of a right angle turn back here and goes slightly behind the building. Actually came out really good. I was really surprised it wasn't something that was planned. The downspout that I added here is just a piece of strip styrene. You can see that there's a few tufts of grass in there as well. Those are from Scenic Express. Those things are great. I really love those things. They really can take a scene and add a whole level of realism that you just don't get any other way. I wanted to talk also about the ground cover. I had a couple questions from some of my other videos. So on that hill right there, essentially what I did is I just used a light tan paint, painted over the Sculptamold after it had dried, and then I sprinkled it with some natural dirt that I had finely sifted. Had sifted it actually quite a number of times to get the finest stuff, and then I used this little plastic spoon to get the powder out. I also use a magnet, I should mention, to get any magnetic stuff out of it. So I sprinkled that over, and then I layered it up with some Woodland Scenics fine turf, and I'll show you that here in a second. So here's the Woodland Scenics fine turf that I used. I used the earth color and burnt grass, and I lightly sprinkle them on in alternating colors until I get the look I want. But it really is so fine, it sits really low to the, there's not a lot of texture to it, so it looks pretty good. Okay, so here's a quick flyover of the facility. It's not a very big space. Parking lot area there, junk piles, some rails stacked up, some more stuff stacked up over on this side. Alright, I wanted to go over a little bit more detail of the junk pile. So the ties are just some more of that balsa wood that I stacked up, glued together, and stained. The tractor apparatus came with the tractor that I showed you guys earlier with the Georgia Pacific facility. That particular kit came with a few different apparatus. You can see that there's the shovel. There's a big log grabber there. It also came with this like boom tool here. So I've just kind of stacked those up to, have something in the yard. It's a BLMA toilet back there. Those black boxes are just junk that I had, God, for 20 years from an old layout. I believe the shed is an Atlas kit. Yeah, it's an Atlas equipment shed. And then the tires are some A-line truck tires that I just put some powder on to make them look old. Yeah, one of the last things I wanted to talk about was the parking lot itself and the dirt. So I knew I wanted the parking lot to look like crushed gravel or crushed rock. So a little bit different than the rest of the layout. So what I used was Arizona rock. Has this really fine, I believe it's an N-scale ballast that I use. I don't remember the exact one. I'd have to look. But it worked out pretty good. I had to use a small roller. It's a little actually plastic wallpaper roller for rolling the seams of wallpaper when you lay it. And I had to roll that down to keep it nice and flat. And then I just sifted a couple light colors of dirt over top of it to give it a little depth. And you can see, like over here, there's more dirt along the edges than rock. Same over here, more dirt back in here, less rock. Lots of rock here and here and in front, but a good layer of dirt around the outside. And then those tufts of grass worked out good. I'm probably going to do a little bit of static grass around the edges. At least I keep saying I'm going to, but so far I've yet to do it. And there's a couple more signs. Those are built the same as the stop sign that I showed you earlier. As far as work that still needs to be done here, obviously some of this foreground stuff, like over here, needs to be done. Another thing I really want to do is I'm probably going to put some more posts up here to protect these and put some switch stands in. And I've got a plan to put in some operating switch stands. There's no motors underneath these. These are all, I mean, this is the way I do it, literally with my finger. That's the way I do all the switching, which is not ideal, but because of the way that this facility, or I'm sorry, the layout is constructed, that's the way I chose to do it. But I do want to put the switch stands in with the little, targets that'll spin as it moves. I've seen a couple articles on how to do that, so I think I'm gonna do that at some point. But other than that, I think this scene is pretty much finished. So thank you for watching, and leave me any questions or comments. I'm always eager to hear them. And well, thanks for watching.